Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today, we are going to be going over my 10 favorite reads of the first half of the year. Now, these are not going to be in any kind of order. I think I just did them almost chronologically in terms of like when I read them in the year. And they're not in any kind of order because I didn't feel like ranking them. I just like to make these lists, I guess this one in particular, I just want it to be about my favorite reads that I've had so far in the year of 2024. But before we get into the list, we have to go over the answer for the last video's Comedy with Colin segment, where I asked you guys the joke, who won the neck decorating contest? The answer? Nobody. It was a tie. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get on with this list. Again, this is not ranked. If anything, it's just chronological. So the first entry on my list is going to be Memories of Ice, the third book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. Now, Malazan has continuously and without fail amazed me in its scope, the world, the magic, and the military aspects of the series. Now, these were aspects of Malazan that I expected going into the series. What I did not expect, or what I wasn't aware of how deeply it would affect me, was the emotional impact that these books have had on me. All three of the first three books in the series have had a deep emotional impact on me in very distinct and unique ways. And Memories of Ice specifically, over the course of the last 100 pages of this book, and if you're a fan of my channel, you know, you've heard me talk about this before, over the course of the last 100 pages of this book, I shed at least that many tears. And I think that I learned really what the word empathy means by seeing it in action. And to gain a deeper understanding of a word that I thought I knew the meaning of was amazing. And this book was incredibly cathartic and satisfying in so many ways, and definitely earned a seat on my list of favorite reads of the first half of the year. Book number 2 is going to be The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Either way, there will be a picture with his name on my either left or right. This book was catching some steam on a few of the channels that I follow and the Discord channels that I'm a member of, and it really piqued my interest. Now, with lobbyists such as Evie from She Was Only Evie and Dan from the Black and Blue Collar Reader, it was only a matter of time before I finally picked up The Spear Cuts Through Water because A, those two are my friends, and B, they're persuasive and for a good reason. Dan is such a talented lobbyist that he organized a read-along on our Discord, and it started in January, so I finally bought my copy of The Spear Cuts Through Water and got to reading. This entire book felt like a fever dream to me in the best way possible. It was as magical of a reading experience as I've had since reading Paranesi by Susanna Clarke a couple of years ago, and is anything but traditional fantasy from both the story aspect and the structure of the narrative. And at the end of the day, this book is a story within a story within a story about the differing ways that three tyrannical sons ruled the lands and the people around them, and the fallout that happened as a result of their rulings. Now, this book was full of amazingly beautiful prose, abrupt surprises, and a sense of wonder that I think anybody who likes the fantasy genre could really sink their teeth into. Also, the cover is freaking awesome. Next up, we have In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, a classic and heavily talked about book for a great reason. This book allows us to grapple with making sense of a futile crime committed by two subpar criminals, and the amount of lives affected by their rash decision to kill a man and his family to strike it rich quick. It was a poor get rich quick scheme and reverberated throughout the community and many parts of the country in its aftermath. And sure, we read books for entertainment and comedy and tragedy and tons of fun aspects, right? Especially to reading fiction, but the books that end up having a lasting impact on me personally always leave me asking questions about what I thought I knew about the truth going into them, what I thought I knew in general going into them. And In Cold Blood, by the end of it and throughout, certainly had me asking questions about myself and the world and the people around me. And I'm glad that my mom bought this book for me about 3 years ago now, and I'm really glad that Britain from some oaky dude sparked the read-along and subsequent discussion that him and I had about this book, because it has certainly been a highlight of my reading year thus far. Next up on the list we have Blood of Dragons, and this is the fourth book in the Rainwilds Chronicles by Robin Hobb. I have an interesting relationship with this subseries in the realm of the Elderlings because it did not start off too hot personally for me. I did not feel a strong connection with the characters, and until the plot really got going, which in my opinion was like the end of book 1 and even throughout book 2, I wasn't nearly as invested in the Rainwilds Chronicles as I was in the other subseries in the realm of the Elderlings up to this point. With that being said, by the time we get to the fourth book, Blood of Dragons, I was really invested in the plot, especially once I saw its connections to the deeper story, to the wider story, and I did grow to love many of the characters. For me, the strongest part of this story was not the characters, not that they were bad by any means, I just didn't connect to them personally as much as I did others of Robin Hobb's characters. But the plot, to me, in this really carried me through, and I'm really glad that it did. By the end, I truly did enjoy the Rainwilds Chronicles, even though it will end up being more than likely my least favorite series in the realm of the Elderlings. I still really enjoyed it and will always love being in Robin Hobb's writing and her worlds. Alright, the middle of the list is going to be Billy Summers by one of my favorite authors, Stephen King. It had been a while since I'd read much King when I picked this one up, and I always wonder how I'm going to feel going back into one of my favorite authors of all time after reading a lot of other authors. And it turns out he almost always holds up for me. I feel at home within the words that Stephen King writes, and there's something to be said about just the comfort of going back to one of your favorite authors, and he is by far my most read author. Billy Summers is one of King's newer releases, although as the years go on, I can't really say that too much more about this book, but it's one that I kind of deliberately was putting off just because I have so many other King books that I still need to read, and I'd heard that King added a lot of his political views, which he's like to do, into this book. And this is not about politics, this comment. It is only said to reiterate that and I've said this before on my channel, typically don't like when my fictional books get too close to real life events, because for me, that pulls me out of the story. And I was worried about that happening with Billy Summers, and to put that to rest, it didn't bug me very much. And I ended up enjoying Billy Summers way more than I originally thought. With the story about a hitman with a sense of morality and a moral code, the premise certainly hooked me. But where this book ended up going, the twists and turns that it took by the end, I did not foresee coming at all. And in my opinion, this is definitely a book where Stephen King did not botch the ending. It isn't perfect, but I think it's definitely one of his better endings, especially of the books of his that I have read of recently. And I really, really enjoyed Billy Summers. And if it's one for you that you've been putting off like I was, I suggest picking it up because once I got into this, I flew through it. I read this one with my sister and she also loved it. We had a lot of great discussions about this book and it had me on the edge of my seat a lot. Next up on the list, we have The Prophet of Edan, the second book in the Edan trilogy by Dr. Philip Chase. Philip yet again delivered with his second installment in the Edan trilogy, displaying the horrors of imperial religious tendencies in a way that's hard to turn a blind eye to. Philip kept me on the edge of my seat as the heroes of the story fought to save the world and the land that they loved from getting taken over and the people they loved from getting taken from them. In this second book, we get to learn more about how the magic works in Eormenland, and we get to meet some new creatures in Philip's world. The Prophet of Edan certainly sets up what promises to be a riveting final installment in the Return to Edan, which I really do hope to get to very soon. Next up on the list, we have Dune by, of course, Frank Herbert. And this is the first time that I have ever read Dune, and I've been putting it off for too long. I did do a dedicated review for Dune on my channel, so I'm not going to speak too in depth about it here, but I absolutely loved it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to end up reading it 13 times like my friend Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews, but I will definitely be revisiting Dune at a later date because Dune is a profound look at politics, what power means, what power is, who really has the power, and how politics, government, and religion shape the world, and in this case, the galaxy that people live in. The added theme of ecology and how people are able to adapt to the world around them truly makes Dune an impressive feat for Herbert, and it makes total sense to me why Dune is a classic and why it is still relevant in today's time. Next up, we have Fool's Assassin, which is the first book in the Fits in the Fool trilogy and the 14th book chronologically in the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. Obviously, for that reason, I can't talk too much about it, but I can say that so many things that I've been hoping for to happen over the first 13 books of this series have come to fruition. And I say that with a large amount of hesitancy because I know Robin Hobb at this point, and I don't trust her to handle my heart and my emotions with white gloves. I am worried about losing things. I am worried about what she's going to take from me and how it is going to absolutely devastate me. But with that being said, it is so nice to be back with Fitz. It's always nice to be back with Fitz. And I would like to say that there are some massive events that happen in this first book in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy that the Realm of the Elderlings fan base has done a tremendous job to not even hint at. And I am going to follow suit and not even come close to hinting at these things, but I would just like to commend the Realm of the Elderlings community for keeping these things non-spoiler because, man, they really, really hit. And for a book, a 14th book in the series, to still be delivering astonishing punches and twists and turns is a testament to Robin Hobb as a writer, and it just reminds me how much I really, really love this series in general. The penultimate book on my list today is going to be The Last Argument of Kings, which is the third book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, and I didn't want to include multiple books by Joe Abercrombie on this list because it would have dominated a lot of the list, but I did read all of First Law this year, and I just de facto picked The Last Argument of Kings because I enjoyed all three of the books. Abercrombie is extraordinarily talented as an author, and by the end of this series, I can see why it's among so many people's favorites. These characters are so vivid and real. The world is ruthless. The fight for the everyman against higher authority is inspiring, and I laughed throughout all of it, even warranting some strange glances from coworkers while listening at work. I am extremely excited that I am just in the beginning parts of my journey in the First Law world, and I cannot wait to continue with the standalones and then even further into the series. Last but certainly not least, we have Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norl by Susanna Clarke. Yes, I've already read this book. No, I don't care. I'm putting it on this list because it was one of my favorite reads of the first half of this year, without exception. The whimsical, lighthearted style of Clarke is something that truly brought this world to life for me, and because this was my second time reading this book, I was able to really allow myself to get invested in the story and not worry about characters and plot lines and keeping all of those ducks in a row. I think that this book is a must-read for fans of the fantasy genre specifically, and anyone truly, because I still to this day do not think that Susanna Clarke gets talked about enough in the wider literary realm, and not enough on BookTube. I think more people should still be reading Susanna Clarke, even though she doesn't have a vast library like somebody like Terry Pratchett or Neil Gaiman. She deserves to be read because she is a treasure of the genre and an extremely talented author in general, not just a fantasy author. Anyways, guys, that is my list of my 10 favorite reads from the first half of the year. I know it's a little bit late, but I was on a bit of a hiatus and I still wanted to make this list so that it would be kind of something for me to come back and check up on and to let you guys know where my barometer is for the year. I would love to hear about some of your guys' favorite reads from the first half of the year in the comment section below. Before we end today's video, we of course have to do comedy with Colin. Today's joke is going to be, what is the least spoken language? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comment below. Guys, if you liked today's video, please don't forget to like it and to subscribe to the channel. I will remind you that we are on the push for 1,000 subs, and once we get there, I will be doing a giveaway of a folio edition of The Shining by Stephen King. What you'll be getting in the giveaway is not this specific book. My mom ordered this for me, and from some kind of shipping confusion, I actually got a brand new copy. It's still in the box. I haven't even opened it. So that is the copy that the giveaway winner will be getting when we get to that point, if we get to that point, hopefully when we get to that point. So don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to get a chance to win a folio edition of The Shining. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here, I hope you guys are all enjoying what you're currently reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.